All right, welcome back, everybody. You are here listening to the fastest growing podcast in all the land, the Tournament Podcast, featuring Tom, Mike, and yours truly, Marty. We focus on everything from sports, music, movies, pretty much everything out there could be a topic for us. So today we have the 16 greatest professional wrestlers of all time. We have the arduous task of trying to whittle it down to just one. Guys, this is going to be another real tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, I am not, overly excited to try to make some of these decisions. I have to say, you know, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say now. It's going to be such a difficult decision. I mean, heck, starting off in round one, depending on the random tournament generator, what we're dealing with could be, very difficult to deal with. So this could be unpleasant.
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky part. Like I said, with it randomized, I mean, you could have, two of the biggest stars in the history of the business matched up right out of the gate, and you got to knock one out. So,
Mm,
yep,
yeah,
it's going to get
that's
tricky.
that's what makes our podcast, I think, very unique and unlike others. That this is very random, and we have to make those tough decisions. So,
Yep, it's nerve wracking. Um,
oh,
but I
absolutely.
am excited to see what the bracket is going to hold for us today.
Well, let me start out here and just give the 16 wrestlers that we have in this list in no particular order except for the top name. We have Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat, The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, HBK Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Sting, Dusty Rhodes, Roddy Piper, Terry Funk, Chris Jericho, Triple H, and Jerry the King Lawler. It's an impressive list right there.
Yeah, I mean, that is a who's
Yeah.
who. I know we had some debate on who to add. Well, it really came down to the final couple editions who to have in there versus not have. But I mean, you could do eight. You would struggle with who to put in eighth, who to leave out 16. We could have gone up to 32 or 64, and we would have had trouble. So it's at some point you
Yep.
got to cut it off. You do the best you can, and
Yeah.
I think that's what we have. It's a pretty good and obviously modern era wrestlers. That's why like a Bruno Sammartino and you know those types of gentlemen are not in this list.
And that's why I threw out John Cena because but yeah, I don't, yeah, like I said, it's so hard. There's so many guys to whittle it down. You had John Cena, you could argue. I mean, his work isn't, it's gotten better over the years. He's a he's an actor now, and so he's a well known star, and he's been a multi time champ. So yeah,
And he's got a
man,
beautiful head of
it's
hair
hard.
now, and I mean
Oh,
that
that he
probably
does, yeah.
should have counted for something, but we had to leave somebody out, so we
Yep,
So
that's
yeah,
apologize to the
true.
Cena family.
yep.
So I guess one of the other kind of decisions we need to make here is the criteria that we're going to be using to, judge these guys against each other. And I think it should be similar to what we used on our last wrestling podcast to try to do this some justice. I think the main criteria, and you guys, if I'm missing anything, just let me know. But first of all, ring work, obviously, um, mic work, the legacy that they have or have left on the business. And I think we talked about it, maybe joked, but we could say also, uh, body or their look. That's four right there. Am I missing any important criteria we should use?
I don't
Like
think
charisma,
so.
maybe?
Yeah, I
Um,
can't think of any.
yeah, I mean charisma. Whew, would probably be kind of a tie-in with their in-ring work, their mic work, the overall legacy. Would all have to do with charisma as well. I mean, if we come down to a tiebreaker, and somebody is just so much more, charismatic than the other one, I guess maybe that can be a tiebreaker. And again,
Okay.
this is like the selections of wrestlers. We could have so much or so many, variables and criteria that, I mean, it could go on and on forever. So, yeah, I'm going to write that down, and we'll see if we need to go to that one.
The charisma is going to be our last, tiebreaker, so to speak. So the main criteria we have then is ring work, the mic work or mic skills, and cosmetic / look.
Then the
And,
legacy, their
And
overall.
Yeah,
impact. So that's what 4 we got.
Yes.
Yep. The
So, yep.
overall legacy they've left on the business. So, okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Well, my hand's shaking right now, but I'm going to hit the generator here, the proprietary tournament podcast generator, to get these scenes going.
All right.
Oof. Okay. Well, and what we'll do here is just kind of do it like the last week. One of you guys can start the first bracket, and then we'll reverse it, and I'll take the last one. We'll keep going. But
All
let's
right.
jump right into this if we're ready.
Well, we are ready. Let me throw this in, though.
Do it.
Since you went through the 16 wrestlers that are in here, depending on the platform you're listening to us on, if you disagree with our selections, please comment. Let us know who you think should be in here and or who should be out. I would be very interested to see if there's any glaring... is there anybody glaring that we left out? We'd be interested to know. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's a good thought. So basically, let's get ready to jump into it. I'm trying to put a screenshot of this for you guys, and for some reason I'm failing in a big way to
Yeah, we're
get
going
this
into this blind. This is gonna add an additional dimension of difficulty.
Trying to put this in our channel here. But as I work on this, let's just jump into this. You guys decide who goes first. The very first bracket that we have here, randomly generated, we have The Undertaker going up against Terry Funk.
Wow. Yeah, that's
It's an interesting bracket.
Yeah. I guess I'll jump in just because it's Terry Funk, and he was a little bit more of my generation, if not really even before, at least when he started out. Okay, wow. You talk about just using the first piece of criteria, in-ring work. Terry Funk, I mean, primarily known for a very wild, aggressive sort of ECW-ish barbed wire landmines in Japan type of work, where the Undertaker, again, primarily known instead of Mark Callis as the Undertaker for that particular gimmick, where I don't think there was a huge move set. I didn't really watch a whole lot of The Undertaker. As I mentioned in our previous pro wrestling related podcast, I'm not a fan of WWF or WWE, so really have not seen a lot of The Undertaker. But from what I have seen, that kind of uppercut chopped at the throat and, a body slam, and, but it went with the character. But in-ring work, at least in terms of, willingness to give up your body and just, really do anything and use anything. And we're talking about, halogen light bulbs, barbed wire, baseball bats, tables, chairs, etc. I'd go with Terry on an edge there. Mic work. I'm not going to go into a discussion there. That's Terry Funk. Um, Legacy, because Undertaker is probably known as, one of the best locker room guys. Everybody has immense amounts of respect for him. I mean, the legacy for any of these matchups is going to be difficult because they've all left their stamp on the sport. I will call it a sport, even though it's sports entertainment, but the sport of pro wrestling. Well, I'd go with a mark on that one. Body, well, I mean, they're probably pretty similar, maybe a slight edge to the Taker. Charisma. Whew. Yeah, boy. And I said charisma just because I'm going 2-2 here on the breakdown. I don't want to take up too much time. Man, a lot. Well, the character of the Undertaker obviously was not. He had no charisma, and that's why they had Paul Bearer or whoever else. I just remember Paul Bearer. I assume he was, his primary handler. I think as they went on with the character, Undertaker then went from being a dead man to a biker, and he came to the ring on a motorcycle. I guess he was by himself at that point. Terry, oh my gosh. Boy, what a matchup out of the gate. But I got to let Mike jump in here. I got to come up with so I'm just going to go with my gut. Heck with it. I'm the oldest of the three of us. I'm just going to go old school and flip a coin and say Terry Funk wins this one in my book.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Nice.
Well, we're going to have a tiebreaker right out of the gate here then, because I'm actually going to go with The Undertaker.
Oh, no.
With all due respect, because, Terry Funk was a wild man. Probably still is. May still be working. Who knows? He was still winning titles and doing moonsaults off the top rope when he was like 50 years old. So he might still be doing it now. But, yeah, in-ring work. I mean, there are two different types of wrestlers. In-ring work, God. Because I'm, a little bit younger, as we discussed before, more familiar with the modern versus the old school. And it's all due respect because they've both been in some solid matches. Terry had some 5-star matches with Ric Flair, obviously back in the 80s, and had some, obviously tremendous matches even before that. But Undertaker's been in some, if not 5-star, probably should have been 5-star matches with Shawn Michaels in the past, as well as countless others. So, actually, for the ring work, maybe I was gonna go Taker, but screw it, I am gonna go Terry Funk for the ring work.
Nice.
For the mic, I guess I will have to go with Terry. Actually, I may end up going with Terry Funk after all, as I sit here and talk about it.
Wow.
He's going to veto himself.
Yeah. Damn it, I'm using the veto on myself. Mic work, and again, Undertaker, just like his ring work, Undertaker in his original form or incarnation or whatever didn't do a lot, didn't talk as much, but as he was, as he got older and the character progressed, his ring work did get better. His mic work got better, but yeah, Terry, I'm gonna give the ring work and the mic to Terry so far. The look, I'm gonna go with Undertaker on the look because, I mean, let's be honest. How many guys could pull or I guess in this case, I'm going more the gimmick than the physique or any of that. But how many guys could pull off basically playing essentially a zombie? He was the dead man, basically a corpse, which in most cases that gimmick's gonna fall flat. but he made it work and did it for 30 years and was still as popular, the day he retired as he was the day he debuted. So for the gimmick, the overall look, he made it work. So I'm going to go with Taker. And then Impact, I think you have to go with Taker just because Terry was around, well, in his prime at least. Wrestling wasn't as available to so many people as it is now, with obviously, more TVs out there. There's internet. The Undertaker, was around more so in the last 20, 30 years, where wrestling was more readily available on TV and online than when Terry was in his prime. So I feel like more people are going to know who Undertaker is over Terry. So for the Impact, I'll go with Taker. So what am I, 2-2? Ring and Mike, I went with Funk, Look, and Impact. Taker. So
Charisma.
just charisma. Damn.
Tiebreaker.
Well, and it's funny, and I hate to interject here. I apologize.
Go for it.
All I was going to say is as you're going. Well, first of all, if we continue to put in this much in-depth thought into this pod, it's going to be 3 hours long. But
I was thinking that too, actually.
But actually, what I was going to say is, I almost would veto myself, only because the more you discussed it, I thought to myself, okay, if it's such a close matchup, if I was starting a promotion today, and I could either start it with a prime Undertaker or a prime Terry Funk, who would be the draw? Who would be the guy I'd want that would put butts in seats? It probably would be Undertaker. I'm going to stick with Terry, but if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have given the edge to Undertaker, but I just needed to say that. I had to get that off my chest.
No. And that's why I'm kind of thinking, because, the charisma's hard. I mean, obviously, I think Terry probably had more charisma. But yeah, I think I'm going to give, for that reason, just Taker, I think, is probably more well-known culturally. I think more people would know who he is, especially if you went, overseas. I have a feeling Taker, because he's more modern, more people would know him. So I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with The Undertaker. So then we'll let Marty be the tiebreaker here.
Oh, boy.
And Martin, and I'm interjecting again like an a-hole.
Oh, boy.
Marty,
we'll cut it.
Maybe would want to quickly explain to the listeners how our veto works. We didn't mention that.
Good thought. So one of the other facets of our podcast, which is very interesting, is you're hearing right now, we have certain criteria, but we randomize everything, which makes it very tough. However, we each have one veto. If we feel very strong about a certain, in this instance, wrestler, or whatever it may be, an artist, we could use our veto and take that person to the next round. However, if you use your veto, we've discussed this in other podcasts, I think we decided if one person uses their veto, the other two, we cannot use our veto to override that veto, right?
I would change my mind on that and just say if it's our veto, we should be able to use it whenever.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's to veto a veto,
wow.
I think we should be able to do it because we only have one. So if you feel that strongly, I mean, it's gone anyway at that point. And this is our third recording of an actual full-length podcast. We've only used one veto, which was myself in the greatest song intros of all time. I used a veto, I believe, to move Motley Crue on to the next level in one of the brackets. But I think we should just be able to use it at any time, maybe barring the final, the actual winner. That should just be a 3-0 or 2-1 vote and done. But
I'm fine with that.
We're probably still working on it.
I agree with that.
That's a work in progress, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, nope, I agree with that. But, the veto can be very important. But It has to be something you're extremely passionate about to use it. All right. So, yeah, just right off the bat, the first thing I want to say, Mike mentioned this a couple times, and I think it was very important. One of the biggest things we could talk about all day long is, the current generation has so much more access, like Mike said, to current, professional wrestling, the way, cable and broadcasting and satellite and everything. So definitely more people, I would think, are going to be familiar with Terry Funk of this new generation. When you go back to older school fans, as I say, people of the 70s and 80s probably are going to lean more towards Terry Funk because he's a former NWA world champion, which NWA was the big deal in professional wrestling. Yeah, but as always with this podcast, it's a real tough one because the Undertaker has a tremendous legacy. He took what could have been a very silly gimmick and made it, I don't know if you can say believable, but he made it work. Terry Funk, the same thing. Wild man type gimmick, hardcore. Boy, oh boy. But like Tom said, if we're using also kind of, it's not actually criteria, but if you started a promotion, which wrestler would you want to use off the top? In their prime, who would you choose? Based on that, I hate to do it because I'm old school, but for the sake of brevity, since I'm the third one, I'm just gonna leave that as my little breakdown. I'm gonna go with the Undertaker. Just because, again, I think he would be more of a featured attraction. I think he would sell more tickets, so to speak, than Terry Funk. Even though I'm old school and I really appreciate Terry Funk, I'm gonna go with Undertaker on this one.
Nice.
All right.
Oh, so I apologize to myself.
Well, and so since I am the outlier, I could decide to use a veto, but certainly I'm not going to veto Mark Callis moving on to round two. He's certainly deserving.
Okay. Nice. So, first round, already a tough one. We have Undertaker, Mark Callis advancing. The second bracket, get ready for this, guys. Woo! We have Randy Macho Man Savage going against Sting. So this is a tough one, and Mike, I think you go first.
All right. Oh, whew. Yeah, this is a tough one. I appreciate, obviously, both men. Truth be told, Sting is probably my favorite wrestler of all time. Coming up as a kid, the look, especially the makeup and the charisma, really attracted me. So I've always been a big Sting fan. Ring work, I hate to do it, but I got to go Savage. Savage is, again, well, as the list says, one of the best of all time. Savage is probably one of the five, maybe one of the top five best in-ring workers ever, in my opinion. Mike, you got to go Savage. Look, both guys had a tremendous look, but again, kind of going to the, if you're starting a promotion, which guys look would attract more, I guess for that, I'm going to go with Sting, because I just think the look with the colors, or even the later Sting with the crow gimmick, the makeup and everything, I think would be more of an attraction. Impact. Actually, Impact, damn, I hate to do this. I'm going to go with Savage, even though, well, both guys were kind of in the same era, but I'm going to give Savage the edge just because, unfortunately, WWF was even though we all may have been more fans of the NWA slash WCW, WWF was definitely the bigger promotion, looked at as the bigger promotion. So I think because Savage spent so much time there versus Sting being in, the for the most part the number 2 promotion, I think Savage is probably going to be more well known, have a bigger impact. So as much as it hurts me to do it, I'm going to go with Randy Savage on this one.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Yeah, Dare, I say, obviously another extremely difficult one. In-ring work, I'm going to go with Randy. I think he much more well-rounded skill set. Sting was a little more limited, just relied on power. Mike skills, I mean, not Sting's strong suit at all. Definitely Randy there. Legacy on the business, I'm going to go Sting. And my rationale with that is Surfer Sting. For folks my age, or just not too much younger, I mean, at the height of his powers, I think Sting was a bigger name and a bigger draw than Randy at the height of his powers. I mean, Sting was probably, I mean, if WWF was Hulk Hogan still at that time, I would say NWA biggest draw, WCW was Sting, followed by Rick at that in his prime, meaning Sting's prime. Body, I mean, I'm going to give the slight edge to Sting on the body. Randy was put together, but Sting was, he was a big, solidly built guy. So then it comes down again to, we have another tiebreaker where I'm thinking, okay, like the charisma. Wow. I mean, that's almost 50-50. I mean, obviously they were both different. So then I'm just going to quickly go to, I'm starting a promotion right now. I need one guy to be my main guy, and I need him to be at his prime when, you know, and just looking at it that way, I just think Sting, that Surfer Sting in his prime, was so huge. I mean, arguably the biggest name, most, the biggest draw in terms of wrestling in the world at that time. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Sting in this one. So we're going to put pressure on Marty with another tiebreaker.
Wow.
Nice.
Woo. Well, again, being the third, the third voice of the round, I'll try to, keep it somewhat abbreviated. But going through the criteria, ring work, I think we all agreed that Savage was the better worker. On the mic, I'm also going to go with Savage. Sting, especially for the first 5-6 years of his career, he was close to clueless on the mic.
Yeah, he
Or
did.
yeah, he
think,
was struggling
I can
on the
think
mic.
back at some things like for that when J.J. Dillon threw a martini in his face and they had the women around the ring and he didn't know what to say.
He knew what to say. Ow! That's what he said.
A matter of fact, I can quote a couple things Sting said in that pathetic little promo he did. Rick, you've got some women with you here, and they're looking tough. Boy, are they looking tough. Ow! Yep. It was a nightmare.
Oh, poor Sting. Would have been better off with Luger on the mic, but go ahead.
Mic work, though, definitely Savage for the look. I would also agree with you guys. I mean, yeah, Savage had a great look, and his tights and the colors were always really cool. But Sting, especially as Tom said, the Surfer Sting, he did have such a unique look, the neon and everything. The legacy, that's where it gets a little tougher for me because, Randy Savage is known as, I think, one of the, best workers of all time. He was extremely passionate, multi-time world champion. You go to Sting, who still to this day is working. in a a somewhat big role in AEW, and Sting has to be in his late 50s or maybe 60. I'm
He's
not sure.
actually, I think he's 62, I believe, actually
Wow.
now. So yeah, in his early to mid 60s.
Yeah, I mean, and he's still going now, and he's that big of a name where people still want to see Sting. Um, boy, oh boy. So the legacy, though, Sting morphed from Surfer Sting, and he had a great resurgence as the Crow Sting back during the NWO angle, which was extremely over, and Sting really, revitalized himself in a big way. Savage was always, pretty much Savage, but that lasted the test of time. Uh, Legacy for these two, man, it's almost tied for me. It's tough. Savage may have been the number two guy over in the WWF, but I agree with Tom. I guess Sting would have been the number one guy, especially the number one, baby face slash good guy. So, when it comes to charisma of these two, it's almost a tiebreaker. Also, man, this is a tough one for me. Um, Holy smokes! I'm gonna go with my gut instinct on this. By the slightest edge, I'm gonna go with Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm sure Mike is disgusted. He may use his veto, and it's so close that I honestly, the ring work piece to me, Savage is a good amount better, so that's why I went with Randy.
Yeah, well, and Mike also agrees with you. I was the
Yeah.
outlier with Sting, but I am
Oh,
not
okay.
not
Oh, yeah.
going to use
Apology.
my veto because again, Randy is absolutely deserving to move on to the second round.
And it hurt me to do because, like I said, Sting is probably my favorite wrestler of all time, going back as a kid. But yeah, just kind of being honest with myself and with the audience listening. It's breaking down all the criteria. At the end of the day, I felt Savage deserved to move on more, but I was kind of hoping you guys would pick Sting so we could move on and I'd feel good about it. But damn it, oh well.
Well, everyone out there listening, technically,
You can
I'm
veto.
blaming Mike for Sting's elimination
Yep.
because
Oh, that
yep,
is true.
you set the tone for this.
Yep.
Poor Mr.
Yep.
Borden.
Yeah, there's
Sorry.
nothing saying you cannot veto yourself.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Steve, if you're listening, and I'm sure
I've
you are.
heard rumors that he is listening to the wrestling podcasts. So first of all, thank you, but yeah, I apologize on behalf of my brothers, but moving on.
Well, and just to give that little sneak peek, that means in round number 2, we're going to have The Undertaker versus Macho Man Randy Savage.
Mm.
So that's something to look
Nice.
forward to. All right, guys.
Oh
The
my
next
God.
bracket here, get ready for this.
Oh,
They matched up before at SummerSlam. We've got HBK, Shawn Michaels
Oh,
versus
jeez.
Hulk Hogan.
mm.
This is
Boy.
insane. If you guys don't mind, I can jump in and go first on this
Oh,
one.
absolutely.
I mean, gosh, man, every one of these we can say, man, this is tough. This is tough. When this one is no exception. But let's start with our criteria. Ring work. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that Hogan's better. I'm kidding. Shawn Michaels is heads and
Yeah.
above a better, wrestler, worker, whatever you want to call it, than Hogan. Even though, let me throw out this little tidbit for anyone that's a casual wrestling fan or may not know. Google Hulk Hogan in Japan and watch some of his matches in Japan. There's a significant difference in the way he wrestles. He's more of a scientific wrestler, technical wrestler. It's actually pretty impressive. And Vince McMahon just told him, be this monster out there. Don't fall. Don't, bump for people. Just punch and clothesline. But he was not bad. So that's just a little tidbit. Check out, some of his work in Japan. Um, Mike work, I'm gonna give the slight edge to Hulk Hogan. I mean, Shawn Michaels was good on the mic. Hogan was good, but Hogan's just his presence and let's be honest, who doesn't remember the phrase brother? And that came from Hogan's mic work. So um, the look and the body, you have to go with Hogan. I mean, he was a big monster. So I'm already three. Well, I'm 2-1 for the Hulkster, I believe. Um, for the overall legacy, this is to me the big difference. I mean, Shawn Michaels, known as literally one of the best wrestlers of all time, but Hulk Hogan is known as what brought professional wrestling back to life, not only in the like early to mid 80s, but again back in the mid later 90s with the NWO. Credit Hogan with that. To me, it's not an easy one, but just right out the gate, I'm gonna go with Hulk Hogan on this one.
And I'd say I'll go ahead and jump in because I'm not gonna spend too much time. I pretty much agree with all that. Ring work is clearly HBK, but yeah, the mic, you could go either way. But yeah, I agree. Hogan, the look, again, Hogan was such a big presence, big, he was tall, obviously well built, just, had the look. And then, yeah, overall impact, there's no doubt Hulk Hogan. There's people that don't even know wrestling that probably know the name Hulk Hogan. Whether it's, it doesn't matter what country you go to, people are going to know who Hulk Hogan is. A lot of them, at least.
I hope.
So, yeah, I think I'm going with Hogan as well. Well, not think. I'm definitely going with Hogan, brother.
Oh, okay. Well, Tom, unless you're using a veto, but Hogan looks like he's advancing, but it's still, your turn here.
Well, I don't mind sharing a little personal information here. I am in my late 40s, as close to 50 as you could possibly get. So, and I say that because I was going to tell a quick little story here. I never was a fan of Hulk Hogan until he became Hollywood. Again, I've reiterated a million times, not a big WWF, WWE fan. But the other day at work, I was asked about changing a certain part of a system, some sort of coding something that I work on, and my boss asked me to do so, and just out of complete habit, I changed my voice and said, "That's not going to work for me, brother." And I felt like an idiot. They just stared at me like I had two heads. And but that is the impact of Hulk, and I'm kidding with that story. But but yeah, I mean Hulk Hogan, obviously world known. People that have never watched a pro wrestling match in their lives know who Hulk Hogan is or have heard the name. But in-ring work would be Shawn Michaels clearly. Mike, I'd give it to Shawn Michaels. Legacy is clearly Hogan, maybe arguably the greatest wrestler in terms of whole package to the industry that's ever lived. Body is going to go to Hulk Hogan. Charisma, though, would go obviously to Shawn Michaels. But I just think the legacy, again, is just so enormous. The gap, really, between Hogan and everybody, with the exception of maybe Ric Flair, that it would be hard, really, to have anyone defeat Hulk Hogan, at least in round one. So I'm going to agree with you guys and move Hogan on to a third round because that works for me, brother.
And that's why, like, I'm sure there's going to be people that listen to this and disagree, and that's why we said, obviously we're taking everything into account because, like you said before, obviously just, the whole package in ring work, all that. Obviously, Shawn Michaels was one of the best in-ring workers ever, so there's no doubt there. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're not just going strictly off ring work. This is, your impact and, like we've been saying, look, everything, just taking everything into account. So, but I guess that's the beauty of this as well. People can debate it and tell us what we got wrong, what we got right, and so.
Yeah, and I will also throw a another little caveat in here, and I mean this in complete sincerity. I don't think I've seen a full Shawn Michaels WWF WWE match ever.
Wow.
I know Shawn Michaels from the AWA with
Okay.
Marty Jannetty, against Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka, and the Midnight Rockers. That's what I know now. Well, that's what I am familiar with. I know he improved, and I can go by the hearsay and the video clips that I've seen. He did do a super kick to Ric Flair. I think it was an 80-year-old Rick at the time. At one of the WrestleManias, was it? And that disappointed me greatly. But,
He said, "I love you," at least.
Yeah, so that counts for something. But again, it just, Hogan, he's just too big of a superstar.
Well, if you want, go back and watch. I believe it's SummerSlam 05. The main event was actually Hogan and Shawn. So if you watch that, not only will you get a good chuckle out of it, but you'll get the best of both worlds. Both
All right.
men going head to head for maybe the only time. So,
And last quick thing, and this can be edited out if you prefer. Maybe this should be.
Oh boy.
I didn't say this during my turn, but another thing that, to me, Hogan still with his legacy, but with HBK, what marred it a little bit for me is, boy, how do I say this? What happened to his eyes later in his career was a real turnoff to me. It was hard knowing where he was looking in a promo. Was he looking at the camera? It threw me off. So I just had to throw that out there. So
if
maybe
it
that
wasn't
should be
for
edited out there.
the aesthetics, he may have moved on. Now, I do know too some of the clips. I think in his final days in WWE, I don't know how tall he was. He was probably, I don't know, 6'1", 6'2" would be my guess, but he looked like towards the end there he was wrestling at 6'2", 170 pounds or so, and I don't really know how that was translating either. He was probably a 230, 240 wrestler for most of his career, I would guess. And then I saw some clips like, Jesus criminy, as
he was off the juice. Yep.
Yeah, as he shrunk. So anyway, I mean, Hogan did too. My God, he was enormous.
Well, debatably.
Yeah. So anyway, we're dragging this on.
Yep. So, interestingly enough, this next bracket, much like HBK and Hogan, these guys have wrestled. We have Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart.
I think I
Tom
start.
takes this one.
Yeah, and again, I know the iconic image of Stone Cold and the sharpshooter with the blood pouring down his face. I didn't see that match. I will assume Bret won that particular match, with that sharpshooter. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys will certainly correct me, I'm sure. But in-ring work for these guys, I mean, obviously, come on. Bret Hart. Mike Skills, come on. Obviously, Stone Cold. Body, they're an equal match, in my opinion. So that's 2-0, really, for Steve with the tie and body. Legacy, this one gets a little difficult. I'm just going to take, like the Attitude Era, Stone Cold. I mean, in terms of a run of however many years that was, with him and The Rock, which arguably The Rock could be in this list. Or wait, we do have The Rock in here.
He is in there, yep.
I don't know if there was anybody bigger. So, if you're going to start a promotion and you need one guy at the height of his draw, as great as Bret Hart was, I mean, that 5 year plus run, whatever it was, as I mentioned, from Stone Cold was just on another level. I mean, just literally out of this world. So I'm going to go with Stone Cold Steve Austin to move on and defeat Bret Hart.
Oh, okay. Mike, you don't care? Can I
Yeah.
jump in and just go
Yeah.
second here? I agree with pretty much everything Tom said here. Ring work, I'm going to go with Bret Hart. Now, with this little caveat that Steve Austin, he was known as Stunning Steve Austin WCW prior to all this, and he was actually a really good worker, a really good wrestler. Most people that know anything about Stone Cold know that his neck was broken in a tragic pile driver gone wrong from Owen Hart, and that really limited his ring work going forward. But to me, Bret Hart still, the better overall worker. Um, Mike Gill, I go with Stone Cold too. Bret Hart was a little timid on the mic. Stone Cold was, I mean, he was so darn charismatic and over. It wasn't even, funny. When we talk about body / look, I also agree that one to me could be a tie. I mean, Stone Cold rocked the all black. Bret Hart had the neat, pink and black colors. Both built good. Legacy, though, again, this is where to me the divide is. Bret Hart, tremendous, and I would argue that way up north in Canada, that he's known as maybe the best ever. But Stone Cold, his legacy, the merchandise, the Austin 316, all that stuff was maybe more over than anyone ever. I'm going to go with Stone Cold on this one.
All right.
Nice. And there ain't really a whole lot I can add, so we'll save a little time here. It's going to be a 3-0 sweep. Again, just ring work alone. Bret Hart, again, like I said about Sean, one of the best of all time. So it's, I don't think you can really debate that. Bret Hart was amazing. But yeah, just Austin, the impact overall. It's just, Stone Cold's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, drawing star to this day of all time. Merchandise. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever been as over for that, whatever it was. If it was like 5, 6, 7 year span, nobody's been as over as he was for that span. So, yeah, just overall, I think you have to go with Steve Austin. So, 3-0.
And
Nice.
I'm just jump in real quick here and just reiterate to the folks listening that that's why our tagline here with the tournament podcast is matchups are everything. I think maybe against half of this field, Bret Hart would have moved on to the second round. However, in this randomly generated matchup, he just happened to fall in against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Bret Hart is no more, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And to finish this off, I will say, are we ready to move on to the next matchup? Just to verify.
Oh, we will, and
Oh.
just the next round's going to be Hogan and Stone Cold. Throwing that out there too.
Oh,
Go ahead.
nice.
Jesus.
Oh, I was just going to close that Austin and Hart by saying let's move on, and that's the bottom line because Mike said so.
Nice.
Yep, I like it.
Nice. Okay, time to get serious and maybe even a little emotional for me.
Oh, here we go.
This
Yes.
next round is gut wrenching, but again, as Tom said, matchups are everything. Holy smoke! We have Ric Flair going against Roddy Piper, literally two of my favorites of all time. I'm emotional. I can't go second either. I'm not going to choose.
Marty is recusing himself from the selection process.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I think you're first anyway here. So let's
Oh
Put
man.
all the weight on your shoulders.
Let's see. Okay, just kind of going down the four main criteria. Ring work. I don't think there's any doubt you have to go with Rick. Piper was more in line with, like, again, Stone Cold Steve Austin, more of a brawler. So I think ring work, you got to go Rick. Mike. Oh man. I mean, honestly, you could go either way. But again, I'm gonna give the edge to Rick. Look, it's the look. I mean, the bodies, kind of cancel each other out. I'm gonna ultimately give the look to Rick as well, and more so, I'm just picturing him coming out with earlier in his career would wear what, like a t-shirt and the kilt, but the robe was more flashy. And made Rick look like, a massive star when you wear an expensive robe down to the ring. Overall impact, I'm gonna go Rick as well. I know Piper was in the WWF during the big boom in the '80s, but Rick is still around, 50 plus years, or give or take. And so yeah, I'm gonna go with Rick in a fairly, it turned out easy. I can't even talk. A fairly easy decision for me.
That's okay. You're emotional like I am.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, Marty, did you want to go second, just to get it out of the way, or would you like me to?
I'll go second because, I'm barely holding it together here. Starting with the criteria, ring work, I think heads and above. Ric Flair's a better worker. Mic skills, this one to me is, it's probably a tie.
Yeah.
These guys were both incredible on the mic. For body/look, it's almost a tie again. Neither of them were ever known as, swimsuit model type bodies, but they were both built good and looked real good. Legacy, I think this is kind of where it separates, even though Piper is again an all-time great, and I think even a casual wrestling fan knows Piper. Piper rubbed shoulders with many Hollywood elites. He was a big-time actor. But Ric Flair, and I still love this. I'm not a fan at all of current day rap and hip hop, but the culture, they have really accepted Ric Flair, and he's a big part of the hip hop and rap culture. He's in videos, they're referencing him in songs, and I appreciate that he's still a big deal. But for me, based on the legacy, and God, he was a 16-time world champion, guys. I'm going with Ric Flair, but I love Roddy Piper a lot.
Well, I'm going to put a completely different spin on this and kind of throw the criteria that we've immediately, or that we discussed, out the window. And I'm going to just kind of take this as the angle of who had, like the bigger heart. At least in terms of the wrestling industry and character, who was the more giving individual. I do know, I'm sure Roddy Piper was no slouch. I do remember when he gave Jimmy Snuka a coconut. And that was nice. But Ric Flair, first of all, the heart of this man. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, he gave a mink coat to somebody. Was that Baby Doll or Precious?
Precious.
He gave, a mink coat, just out of his own pocket. I think he gave Ricky Morton a bra. And he gave Magnum TA a very nice suit. So, just taking those things into consideration, the giving heart of the Nature Boy. And I say that in jest. Like Hulk Hogan, I don't know who would have beat Rick. And thank God it didn't come down to Rick and Hogan in round one. Actually, they're in separate parts of the bracket here. Because it could come down to Hogan and Rick. You never know. But I got to go with Rick all day on this one.
Nice. Nice. And I'm going to say one more time, I'm going to speak for all of us. I don't think there's absolutely even one iota of disrespect or lack of appreciation for Roddy Piper, because Roddy Piper was incredible, and
It's just the matchup, unfortunately.
yeah, it's again, our tagline, matchups are everything. Hopefully I'm saying that right. If not, edit it out and get someone new in here, so I'm a disgrace. But yeah, that's a tough one.
Indeed.
Well,
I'm curious to see who Rick will face off with in the next round.
well, I'll tell you who the winner of Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Jerry the King Lawler. And who do we have first on this? I think that's Tom goes
Yeah,
first.
I believe it is me. Okay, quick rundown of criteria in ring work. Wow. I'm going to say a tie out of the gate with both men. Mic work. I'd probably go with another tie. Legacy in the business. Again, it's like the Terry Funk, Undertaker. You're doing two completely different generations is what you're looking at here. And Triple H certainly is going to be more known to our listener base, percentage-wise than Jerry Lawler. At least Jerry's career, they'll know Jerry as the WWE commentator. But legacy of the business. That is. I mean, I don't know. I'd almost have to say a tie there too. I mean, body is going to go to Triple H. Charisma is damn close too. I mean, they're all so. This is a hell of a matchup here. I'm going to just go to my little thing of if I'm going to start a promotion and I want one guy at his peak and the butts he's going to draw in the seats of my promotion. Is he going to fill my stadiums and my arenas? Is he going to make me money? And you can't forget, at least people around my age, Jerry Lawler, especially in the Southern Territories, he was the draw. He was immense back in the day. Oh man, this one is just so close. I don't know if there is any real definitive thing that divides either guy or that separates him from the other. So just due to age, like almost I did with Terry, I'm going to go Jerry Lawler in this one in a minuscule edge.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'll hop in and go second if you don't mind, Marty.
Sure,
Mine's again. I've stated before. I'm more modern just because of the age, so I'm more familiar with Triple H's work versus Lawler's, especially as Tom alluded to, like in the '70s and stuff. Jerry was the man, like in Memphis and down south. It was Jerry. When Jerry was there, they did great. If Jerry was hurt, the attendance dropped. I mean, Jerry was the man. Oh, but yeah, I pretty much agree with all that. I mean, ring work, from what I have seen and heard about Jerry was solid. So I'm gonna say they're about even. Same with Mike. Yeah, the look. Guess you'd have to go with Triple H because he had a phenomenal physique. Impact again, like you said again, Tom, two different generations, so it's kind of hard. But yeah, I think Jerry was more impactful in his time frame when he was in his prime than Triple H, because Triple H also had, there's Rock, Austin, Undertaker. Triple H was, one of the top stars, but Lawler was the star. So even though I think go more new school, in this case I'm going old school, and I'm going with Jerry as well.
Nice.
Oh,
I like
okay.
the perspective.
Nice. Well, going third is kind of nice, especially when it's so far unanimous. But just extremely quickly, ring work for me. I'm going with Triple H. Jerry Lawler was definitely more of a brawler in the ring, and he was great at selling. I mean, he was mainly selling throughout the match. Mic work and everything, probably a tie, the look and the body, definitely Triple H. The legacy, it's where again it's generational. Because Jerry the King Lawler through the 70s, 80s was the biggest draw there was down south. Tennessee and all through there without question. Um, but for legacy, if you're talking about possibly the last 10 years and maybe the next 20, people may forget Triple H is married into ownership of WWE, and he's been making a lot of decisions. Now, I've heard rumors that WWE may be getting sold, but based on his position in the company, believe it or not, I mean, I might shock you guys. I'm not going to use my veto, but I'm going to go with Triple H just because he was a tremendous wrestler. I think he was a better worker, definitely, but he has so much power in the current scope of professional wrestling. It's not even funny. But again, I'm not going to use my veto, but I'm going to go with Triple H.
Now, and I will throw in a little caveat, as we like to do here, tell a little story or a little something on the side quickly. I think it was that time that he didn't he? Vince, I guess, blew out both quads just sliding into the ring.
You. I was waiting to see where that was going because
of
the pause.
Triple H, what did he blow out, one quad, or did he do both as well in a match? But whatever it was, I know he was injured severely, and he came back. And it was one of the rare times I was actually watching WWE, and he came back. I don't know how they even fit him through the entrance to get out there under the Jumbotron and down the ramp. I mean, his lats and that, he was frickin' enormous.
Oh, yep.
Maybe the large, he made Arnold Schwarzenegger. He made the Mountain or Brian Shaw look little. I mean, just huge. So his work ethic, I'm sure, with a little help, I have not a problem, by the way, with these guys getting a little help. I think they need it for what they do for the fans and what they put their body through, really. But with that aside, though, I just, the work ethic, the desire to come back and continue to strive for greatness, I mean, give him credit there. Just that body. Jesus,
and
he was huge.
I believe he tore both quads, but at separate times. But yeah, to touch on that, he finished, because both cases, of course, happened in the middle of a match, and he finished both matches. He was put in a lion tamer by Chris Jericho in one of those instances. So, that's
again,
one thing
just... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that is one thing that separates him from Jerry as well, that Triple H was fighting through injury and finishing matches with torn quads, and on the other hand, you have Jerry, who was clearly yellow, but
well, and Triple H a little bit more heavily muscled than Jerry Lawler, slightly.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway,
you're yellow.
Some people would say that Jerry Lawler was built like a bag of milk, but
and if anybody doesn't understand that, what I just alluded to by saying yellow, what was that? Was that an empty arena match, possibly? With Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler? So if you YouTube it, you may be able to find out what I'm referring to.
It's a bloodbath.
I love it. All right. Well, and that answers this. For the next round, it's going to be Ric Flair going against Jerry the King Lawler. So that's a classic. But on to the current topic here. This round we have The Rock versus Chris Jericho. And if you guys don't mind, I'll just jump in first. That's okay. Mm-hmm. And start right at the top here of ring work. Boy, tough one, because The Rock was smooth as silk in the ring, but Chris Jericho was a tremendous worker. I mean, it's almost a tie for me. Same thing with Mike's skills. I mean, these guys were both tremendous on the mic. They could cut, serious promos, but they were excellent putting, some comedy in their promos. As good as The Rock was, known as one of the best, I mean, Jericho's pretty darn close on the mic. I'm going to say a tie for the body slash look. I think you have to go with The Rock. Jericho has gone through a metamorphosis over the years where, how do I say this?
Oh, this is quick hit material.
He had, a good physique in the, 90s in WCW. Then something happened, and this isn't politically correct, but his breast disappeared. He literally had no pecs, and it was just like he had an exoskeleton for several years. Then you come into current time. Well, and then after that, he was shredded, though, with abs. Zero chest. Yeah, but abs. And then now, Jericho is built like a 55-year-old biker who loves beer, but he's still a great worker. But I think you have to go with on the body slash look. Legacy. Legacy to me, Jericho's reinvented himself so many times, from a kind of a silly goofball to a punk rocker to a suit-wearing snob. He's morphed over the years, not just physically, but his character as well. But The Rock transcended professional wrestling. His personality was so huge that big-time Hollywood actor. I mean, today he's still in big-time blockbuster movies. For me on this one, it's close, but I'm going to go with The Rock, because to me, if you're looking at a wrestling event, who would pay ticket, buy tickets more to see Jericho or The Rock, I think would be The Rock. I'm going with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
All right. Well, yeah, Mike, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I can. This will be a fairly easy one because I'm going to agree. I agree on all counts. I mean, yeah, the ring work for both guys was good. I may give Jericho the slight edge on the ring work. The mic, both guys, again, phenomenal, so they may cancel each other out. Obviously, the look, you got to go with The Rock. And yeah, like Marty said, the impact is as much as Jericho has reinvented himself and is still doing it at a high level now. The Rock, obviously was one of the biggest, if not for a little time frame, the biggest star in wrestling, especially when Austin was out for a period of time. And now he's still one of the biggest movie stars, and at least at one point in time, a year or so ago, I think he was and may still be the biggest drawing movie star. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue a guy that was the biggest professional wrestler and now is the biggest movie star in the entire world. I mean, you got to go with The Rock, unfortunately, with all due respect to Jericho, because I do consider myself a Jericho-holic, but...
Nice.
All right. Well, and I actually, as we were putting together the 16 wrestlers, I fought hard to get Jericho in here. It came down to Jericho and Big Van Vader and a couple others, but I thought Jericho definitely deserved to be in this one. And we have to also remember before we get started that The Rock also had a body transformation early on. He had some kind of pectoral issues, like he had some residual fatty tissue that was a little bit aesthetically unpleasing. Yeah. And he must have got that surgically removed and came back and was, The Rock that we know now. But also, I will say before I even start breaking down my criteria, both of you guys have made the list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And I hate to even say that. I feel like I'm being aggressive, but In-ring work, I'd say you got to go with Jericho. I loved The Rock's, as Marty said, his smooth wrestling ability, his this is like the people's elbow, as goofy as it was. I freaking loved that thing. I mean, it was just hilarious. Kind of like, oh, who was that guy? He did the worm. It was so damn
Oh,
silly,
Oh,
but it
what's
was hilarious.
Scotty too hottie?
Yeah, there you go. So in ring work, I'm going to go Jericho. Mike, I'm going to go Jericho. I think The Rock was obviously phenomenal on the mic as well. I think Chris Jericho could go off script better, where The Rock had those catchphrases that he always went back to time and time again. Body is clearly The Rock, especially with the additional commentary from Marty on Jericho's hideous physique, charisma. I mean, Jericho was very charismatic, extremely. I mean, but The Rock, I mean, just give me a break. It is The Rock. And I'm not even taking in the fact that, what Mike said, he was the highest grossing actor, at least the last few years. He may still be, I don't know, but I'm not going to take anything along those lines, I should say, into consideration. Again, just falling back to, it's kind of like the Stone Cold thing. At his peak, and I appreciate you guys working with me to put Chris in this list, but at his peak, The Rock, just one of the absolute all-time biggest draws in the history of the sport. So for just that alone, and again, that 5, 6, 7 year run, whatever it was, The Rock, just one of the all-time greats. He has to move on. 3-0.
nice. And just as Tom has said many times before, it's the matchup. Could Jericho have maybe advanced versus someone else? There's the possibility, but yeah, going against The Rock in the first round is a tough draw. Speaking of tough, let's
Oh,
go here to our last matchup of the first round, which is kind of an interesting contrast here. You've got a body guy and a really good looking guy. Then you have Ricky Steamboat, who was a hell of a worker, and he's going against Dusty Rhodes. But this is an interesting matchup. I mean, kind of polar opposites. So Dusty Rhodes versus Ricky Steamboat, and I believe, let's see, would this be Mike
And
going first?
I think so. So let's see, ring work. Dusty was phenomenal for a guy his size, but yeah, I mean, Steamboat was so smooth and darn near flawless. You got to go with Steamboat. Mic work, obviously, is Dusty. Steamboat's mic skills, from what I remember, were probably, well, let's just say he made Sting look like Ric Flair. So the look, it's, I mean, obviously, Dusty had a very unique look. Steamboat had the body, though, so I'm going to go with Steamboat, I guess, for the look. Impact, though, I feel like you got to go with Dusty. I mean, again, both guys are still talked about to this day. Both had, long, successful careers, but Dusty also was a booker and then later a trainer in NXT, and so Dusty hung around in the business a lot longer. I think, though, overall, I'm gonna go with Dusty, with all due respect, because I love Steamboat, but
Nice.
Dusty, yeah, it's hard to even really kind of say why I'm going with Dusty over Ricky, because both guys were so phenomenal, two different looks. But yeah, I just think overall Dusty had the longer lasting impact on the business, with having been a booker and all that as well, and a trainer. So I'm gonna go with Dusty.
Nice.
all right.
I and Tom, you're next, but just I love when one of us is able to make a decision that maybe is against what we typically would do, just because we're using the criteria. And again, it shows what this podcast is made of. We take these criteria very serious, and that's what separates us from other podcasts.
And why we are the fastest growing podcast, currently available on Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube, and hopefully more to come. But quickly, Mike broke it down, I think, perfectly. In-ring work, Ricky, Mike, Dusty, by far. Body, Ricky. Charisma, definitely Dusty. Legacy in the business. We said that this was modern era wrestlers. Dusty is another one that bled over from the previous era. I don't know exactly when, so forgive me, but I know even as far back as I'm guessing into at least the mid 70s, Dusty was a heck of a draw. He was a huge star. And, I know he helped himself when he became booker with NWA. I think it was Tully Blanchard that said that Dusty's dream match was Dusty Rhodes versus Dusty Rhodes. So he always put himself in a predominantly solid position, but really had nothing to take away, though, from his in-ring work, just overall personality and aura, mic skills, as I said, etc. This is, again, a very close one. And I'm not penalizing Ricky Steamboat, who may be mostly known as Ricky the Dragon in WWF, but wherever he went, I mean, you listen to Ric Flair and really anybody, Arn Anderson, talk about Ricky, and he's probably one of the greatest performers in the history of professional wrestling. But just looking at the whole package and who I think would draw at their peak, I'm going to go with Dusty Rhodes and a very slight edge.
Wow. Okay. So, again, this would be a situation where I could use the veto, but I agree with both of you guys. Ring work, Steamboat was superior on the mic. Dusty definitely the body / look. Obviously, Ricky Steamboat, the legacy. I mean, I think Dusty as well. Just like Tom said. I mean, he was the booker for Crockett Promotions / NWA during its hottest times. Like 85 through 87. I mean, you can't tell me there was a territory any hotter than during that period. And that was, Dusty's booking. Dusty was so darn charismatic. Ricky Steamboat, though, was such a good worker. Arguably top 5 of all time. Just smooth as silk. This one is very, very hard for me. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to pull a real chicken ship move here. I'm going to pick Ricky Steamboat because it's already been decided. And, Ricky Steamboat deserves at least one, vote.
So I agree with that.
Dusty definitely goes on. No veto for me, but I'm going to choose Ricky Steamboat just because he was so good in the ring.
And to the folks listening here that, I think we're probably, once this is edited down, probably already an hour in to just describing the winners of the first round. I think we'll go a little more rapid fire in the second round, so just stay tuned.
Absolutely. And, we're now into the second round. We're now into the nitty gritty here. So let's start it off in a big time way. This is Undertaker versus Randy Savage.
Ooh, I forget who goes first.
Let's see. That would be you, Tom. You're first on this one.
Okay. Randy Savage against The Undertaker. Wow. In ring, Randy. Mike, Randy. Body, a tie. Charisma, Randy. Just the legacy and what you hear about Undertaker behind the scenes even is what really makes it difficult. probably the best locker room guy in the history of the business, or at least one of the, and somebody you would want in your promotion. I think the flash of Randy, that character at the peak of his career, if I'm starting a promotion, is, I'm not beating a dead horse, I'm sorry, but a lot of these come down to that. I think at his peak, to draw as the ultimate heel, I would go with a slight edge in this one to Randy Savage.
Wow.
And to possibly create a tiebreaker, I'll go second. I'm actually, again, big Savage fan. I hate to do it, but I'm going to go with Taker, actually, because, yeah, like I said, ring work. Because ring work and Mike, I'm going to go with Savage. Look, though, Savage had a cool look, like Marty, mentioned in the first round with the colors, and but Taker just, with the obviously the body, tall guy, big, really stands out. The dead man gimmick, obviously, so, and then the impact. Taker again is maybe because he's more modern, maybe more globally recognized than Randy, maybe. But yeah, if you're starting a promotion, I would actually go with The Undertaker because I think the look stands out more, and he's such a big guy. So yeah, I would go with Taker.
Ooh, okay, so this is a tiebreaker situation for me. Wow. Yeah, same thing. Criteria. I think Savage is definitely the better worker. On the mic, I would say pretty close for them for the body slash look. Also, pretty close. I mean, Undertaker was definitely a lot bigger, thicker, but Savage was built. He had the neat colors and everything. Legacy, to me, man, this is so generational. I mean, I would think almost anyone that was a fan of wrestling from especially the 80s, through the 90s are going to say Savage. And I think anyone from, the later 90s and 2000s would say Undertaker. So it's so generational to me. But boy, oh boy, if I was paying to see which wrestler, I would probably go a tie again, Taker and Savage. So this is extremely tough for me. Based, I guess, primarily on ring work and just the overall charisma on a slight edge. I'm gonna go with Savage, which would put Savage in a 2-1 unless, Mike, you're considering using a veto to bring Undertaker over.
And I am not. I know I haven't used it yet. One of these days I'll break it out, but so far, same as the last 2 weeks, all these matchups every week are so close for the most part that it's, even if the guy that you pick doesn't move on, it's really hard to argue it. I mean, I know I picked Taker, but Savage was phenomenal. I mean, it's hard to argue. So yeah, I mean, as much as I appreciate both guys, even though I picked one, you can't argue with Randy moving on. So I'm gonna keep it in my back pocket for now.
Nice. All right. Well, tough matchup. We have Savage, who will go against the winner of Kerry, Hulk Hogan,
Woo.
and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No.
And
Oh man,
Mike, this is you going first.
Good.
Oh
my God.
I'm not going to choose on this one. FYI.
Honestly, ring work again. Ring. I'll go Austin. When they were both their peak, they were probably about equal. I know Hogan did more overseas. Austin did more when he was younger before the neck injury. But at their prime, their peak, we'll say equal. Mike work. I'll give actually, I'm going to go equal. I was kind of leaning towards Austin initially, but I think I'm going to say equal on the mic work. The look, again, about equal. It's really hard to pick one or the other. And even impact, this might be the hardest one. Because both guys, obviously, at their peak were easily the two biggest. Austin at his time was the biggest stars in the business. Sam Hogan, biggest star, maybe, again, arguably in wrestling history, most globally known. Whew. But so I'm just going to go down to if I was starting, and not that this is even easy, because if you're starting your own promotion, who would you take at their peak? Probably the two biggest draws in history, probably the two biggest merchandise sellers in history.
Yeah.
So you can't go wrong either way. Just based on the time frame, or how, the time frame that they were at the top of their game or at their peak, I'm gonna go with Hogan, because Austin's run was limited, unfortunately, because the injuries to 5-6 years or something as an in-ring worker, where Hogan had the 80s, then he kind of fell down a little bit, and then had the resurgence in the late 90s with the NWO, and even for a brief period of time when he came back to the WWE in the 2002 or whatever.
Yep.
So just based on tenure alone, I'm gonna go with Hogan.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I forget who's next, Marty. If it's you or I.
You can go next if you want.
Oh, yeah, I almost don't want to, because it's so hard to even think of what to say to differentiate these two. I mean, in-ring work, Steve, Mike, Steve. Body, I'm going to go a tie. So if I don't take charisma into account, that was kind of like an outlying tiebreaker. I'm 2-0 with only one piece of criteria left, which will be legacy. Which, again, like Mike said, I mean, at the pinnacles, I mean, they were so. Now Hulk had a longer running legacy than Steve. For Steve's 5-year window, or whatever that was, he may have been a little bigger than Hogan at the peak of Hogan even, but only for that 5-year window, where Hogan, I mean, my God, through the 80s and early 90s was the man. As much as I didn't like him, because I didn't like the WWF, but yeah, they're all. I mean, we could just sit here and this podcast could go 5 hours, but so without dragging it on, just in the slimmest of margins, and I think people would probably just overall, if you said who's the greatest wrestler of all time, not meaning in terms of skill, just the name recognition and star power, most people would say Hogan. But in this case, I'm going to give the slight edge to Steve, because I think that Attitude Era window was just so enormous. Hogan, though, the biggest babyface in the history of the business, to then be able to go NWO and pull that off as brilliantly as he did, it's hard for me to go Stone Cold. I just don't think you can go wrong either way. I just hate to leave these damn matchups. They're killing us, but I'm going to go with Steve Austin ever so slightly.
Wow.
And if I can throw something in real quick, if this, not to sway Marty's decision one way or the other, but let's also remember that Hulk Hogan also did have a mixer similar to the George Foreman grill. I don't believe Stone Cold Steve Austin ever had a kitchen appliance.
Well,
I could be wrong.
Yeah, we should have added that in as criteria.
If I'm wrong, I do apologize to Steve and his family, but
Steve
I do know that Hogan had a mixer. So
Steve has a beer. So
that is true. So yep. So I guess they cancel each other out. So
he does.
My bad.
It's an IPA, but yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, that made it even tougher for me. But yeah, this is the ultimate matchup here, because you guys pretty much summed it all up. Hulk Hogan is the wrestler of the 80s, arguably the 90s, and Stone Cold is the wrestler of the late 90s, early 2000s or whenever it went till he got hurt. Both were the very top. I think they may be the top two merchandise sellers of all time. Ring work for me, seriously, I'm going to go with a tie because Stone Cold after, well, if we're talking Stone Cold, that's pretty much post injury to me. And he had the same work rate as Hogan, in my opinion, a lot more just brawling and stuff. Mic work, jeez, it's close. The body and look, I'm gonna give the slight edge to Hogan just because he was colorful, the shirt being ripped off during his entrance. Legacy to me, again, Stone Cold is absolutely will forever be known as one of the top wrestlers ever. But Hulk Hogan, man, it's tough. I, like Tom, am not a WWF fan, and in the 80s, I was definitely not a fan, but Hulk Hogan was wrestling. He was the resurgence. So, boy, I'm gonna go with Hulk Hogan on this one, which would put Hogan up 2-1 unless Tom throws out this veto.
Well, and I am the only one to ever use a veto in the history of this podcast.
Will it happen again?
And it is I am strongly considering it, but then again,
Wow.
you have to think I'm strongly considering it to bump Hulk Hogan, which I just don't think is right. So I'm not going to use it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, these matchups pretty much make our Mount Rushmore, our Final Four, and who wouldn't have Hulk Hogan on their Mount Rushmore of pro wrestlers? You'd probably have Steve too, but unfortunately they've matched up against each other.
Wow. Yeah, that could have easily been the championship in any other podcast. It would be Hogan versus Stone Cold.
Yeah, and let me just say here, as in the in the third round, in our Final Four, we're going to have Hulk Hogan against Randy Savage. It could just as easily be The Undertaker against Steve Austin without blinking an eye. I mean,
oh yeah,
that's how difficult these decisions are.
Absolutely. So, on to our next second round matchup here. We've got Nature Boy Ric Flair going against Jerry the King Lawler, who Lawler barely snuck by in that last round. So this is a kind of an old school type classic.
Yeah. I forget our order.
Well, that would be Tom. You would go first on this.
Okay. And we've been discussing this a lot. I think we feel passionately about pro wrestling, so we can maybe discuss this a little longer than maybe people listening want us to. So I'm not going to do that at all here. I will throw in, additionally, on Rick's behalf, I made kind of a joke about his giving heart and the giving nature of the Nature Boy. But on the same token, I will say we cannot forget back in the day that, especially towards the men ringside, probably not in an appropriate way, but he tried to help them out in terms of, letting them know, hey, you're hurting yourself with a poor diet. He would call them out to let them know they should be a little more thoughtful of their health. I'm not going to say what he called them, but that was thoughtful. And also to the women, if there was a young lady that took care of herself, he'd give a little look and a little hip thrust to them. Just, it was like a little nod, like, hey, keep up the good work. So he was really nice to the fans in that way and thoughtful. So, but that, and for many other reasons, as great as Jerry was, Ric Flair moves on in my book.
Beautiful, beautiful. Mike, if you don't care, I'll just jump in here.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, this is like the 1980s dream match here, and they have wrestled before. I believe for the Memphis territory when Ric Flair was defending the NWA title. But again, obviously Lawler made it to this round, so we have a lot of respect for the King, but to me, Ric Flair is just he's different. He's on that level with Hulk Hogan where he transcends the business. Um, without even going any further as well, I'm going with Nature Boy Ric Flair.
And I will agree. I mean, I'll save some time with that because we've already kind of touched on everything anyway. So, yeah, I'm going to agree. I mean, both guys are still around the business. Jerry still obviously does whatever commentating or analysis from time to time. Rick, still pops up on TV, whether it's with, his daughter, Charlotte, or on Legends nights. But yeah, overall, though, yeah, ring work, look, everything, I'm going with Rick. So Rick's moving on.
Beautiful. Which means Ric Flair will go against the winner of this next matchup. Who I mean, I kind of said this before, and I'll say it again. You've got kind of polar opposites. You've got the good looks, the body, women loving, and you've got The Rock, who's a freaking movie star. So we've got The Rock, Dwayne Johnson versus the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Wow. If it's cool, I'll just jump in and do this one first. This again it's so generational, which makes this podcast interesting too. We all have our different perspectives based on age and everything, but I mean, The Rock, one of the biggest, if not the biggest superstar of the 2000s. Dusty, same thing, 70s and 80s. Man, ring work, obviously it's The Rock, the mic. You could say it's a tie, body, and look, obviously The Rock. So, right there, I'm leaning towards The Rock. The legacy piece, I do think Dusty Rhodes, just, his longevity in the business, his two sons are still in the business, but, I mean, Dusty Rhodes was a huge deal in this business. This is a tough one for me. Boy, I think just based on star power, I hate to do this because I'm old school. I'm gonna go with The Rock. I'm sorry to the Rhodes family because I do love Dusty.
All right, guy. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. You guys can handle it the rest of the way. I'll see ya.
He's ticked off. Well, I guess it's just you and me, Mike. But I heard something slam in the background.
I'll jump in here then, and because I'm going to agree. I mean, again, ring work, Rock, Mike, both were good, but you got to go Rock. Obviously, the look is The Rock, and yeah. Just speaking wrestling specifically, you could argue that Dusty has had more impact on the business than The Rock. And again, that's just sticking with wrestling, the wrestling bubble. But overall, The Rock is just such a bigger star and probably, again, probably guarantee, more globally known. Not to, try not to include his acting career in this, but just the name, whether it be for wrestling, acting, whatever, just more people are going to obviously know who The Rock is. And yeah, if you're starting a promotion, you're going to go with The Rock over Dusty, with all due respect to Dusty. So I'm going with The Rock as well.
Well, we've got a 2-0 sweep for The Rock.
Yep.
Did Tom come back? I heard.
I'm back.
I guess we're moving on.
I apologize for that outburst. Yeah, it won't happen again. So let me. Yeah, I mean, in ring, I'd go with The Rock. Mike is Dusty. I know it's going to sound funny, but body, I would go Dusty. I just think probably has like a cherub appeal to him, to the mass audience. I think in the wrestling business, you've got to be, especially, in character, you got to be aware of your surroundings. in that time many years ago when Dusty was pulling up to the offices of Jim Crockett Promotions, I believe, and was just completely unaware of his surroundings and what was going on, allowed himself to be tied up, I think, to a pickup truck and just get the hell beat out of him. And I believe he got his arm broken with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
So just for that reason alone, the lack of awareness from Dusty, I'm going to go with The Rock as well.
Okay. All right. The Rock with a clean sweep here. So correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but that brings us to the semifinal, which it's going to be Savage versus Hogan and Ric Flair versus The Rock.
Oof.
Yep.
I mean, how do we do this? Do we cut off the podcast or do we keep going?
Well, let me interject this real quick. If I've thought about this before, if I were to create a Mount Rushmore of just pro wrestling stars, probably the four greatest of all time, which would be Mount Rushmore, I actually would go with Rock, Flair, Hogan, and Austin. So it's ironic that we're down to Rock, Flair, Hogan, but then Savage. But so basically, just saying this is going to be. I don't know how we're going to decide these matchups, but we have to.
I think one may be a little bit easier than the other one, just looking at them, but at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about, but again, I forget
don't.
who goes first here.
Well, I believe Mike will go first here for the first semifinal match.
All right.
Randy Savage versus Terry Hulk Hogan.
And between these two, ring work, you got to go Savage. Mike, it's almost a tie. The look, again, they had two different looks, but I would just, based on the size, I would go with Hogan. An Impact, like we've said, the previous two rounds, globally known star, kitchen appliances, obviously one of the biggest professional wrestlers of all time. Also,
his movie career and
a moderately successful actor.
I was going to say in an array of genre, probably one genre we can't talk about, but
true.
Oh yeah, he's been in some he's been in a vast array of movies. He's been on TV shows. So yeah, Hogan is again, as much as I love Randy, Hogan is a much bigger and more, again, globally known star. So Impact, you're going to go Hogan. Overall, I got to go Hogan. Sorry, Randy.
Nice. Do you want to go next, or?
Oh yeah, I'm happy to go in next, and I've been starting a lot of my choices off by joking, kidding. So I will say the one time that I do recall these two matched up, which was when Hulk Hogan inappropriately touched Elizabeth, I believe, in the back room of a Saturday night's main event, and Randy beat the hell out of him. So if I was just looking at that, I'd go with Randy. But in all seriousness, again, arguably the greatest star in the history of pro wrestling, putting butts in the seats of my, fantasy promotion. If I were to start one at his peak, I'd have to go with Hulk Hogan.
Okay, so we have a sweep unless I use my veto, and to throw in one of our tidbits, this may be controversial. Edit it out if you want. It seriously doesn't matter to me. This probably puts me in a weird light, but I'm just going to say it. I'm a pretty big fan of the adult film industry, and Hogan, off the top, Hogan's name is now in there with superstars like Peter North, Jeremy,
Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, Ron Jeremy. So, I mean, that right there, Hogan has transcended the business into other forms of media. But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, as great as Savage was, Hulk Hogan, it's so tough. I mean, because this isn't by any means saying Hogan's the best actual wrestler. It's just, based on all the criteria, I agree. Hogan. Definitely Hogan. So
Oh boy.
we've got Hogan in the finals facing
here.
the winner of Ric Flair. Wow. And,
do we just cut it here? And
I'm fine with it. But if we continue,
man.
Tom, you're first with Flair and The Rock.
All right, well, this is the one that I will not joke about out of the gate, and I'm going to make this very quick. I'm going to try to make it really quick. This is a coin flip. I think, the longevity, just taking the wrestling business into account. And at his peak, I think a fitting championship round here is going to be Ric Flair against Hulk Hogan. So I'm going to go with Ric Flair.
Nice.
And I'll hop in and go second if you want, Marty.
Yep.
And I am going, because, like we've said before, just some of these are so close. And this is one, again, where everything is so close. You couldn't go wrong either way. But I will agree that The Rock, his time frame where he was in the his overall time frame in the business was only like 5 or 6 years, even though he was pretty much at the top that whole time frame. It was such a short time frame versus Rick, who has been in the business for 50 years and, pretty much at the top of his game for 30, 40 of those 50 years. So, just taking wrestling into account, I'm going to go with Ric Flair as well.
Beautiful. I'm going to, without wasting time, we'll make it a 3-0 sweep. I'm going to go with Ric Flair also. It's just, again, to peel back the curtain, professional wrestling and all, not even joking, is such a huge part of my life and my childhood. And Ric Flair was the biggest part of that. So, I've got, a huge soft spot for Ric Flair, but he deserves it. Ric Flair's amazing. And that leads us to maybe the toughest matchup in the history of this business, our final for the greatest professional wrestler of all time. We've whittled it down to 16 of the best. We're here at the finals. We've got Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. And, gosh, technically I could go first, or Mike, any of you guys. I'm nervous, though, seriously.
I can go ahead and go first then, if you'd like.
Go ahead.
And I agree, this is just like Austin and Hogan. You got two of the biggest stars in the history of the business. Hogan was the man in one company. Rick was the man in the other. So, ring work, break down the criteria quickly. Ring work, you're going to Rick. Mike, you're going to go with Rick. I'm just going to call it even because it's hard to really say. Again, Impact. Oh, man. Both guys are still around the business after all these years. It's, man. I think, though, I'm going to go, and I'll explain a little bit why, but I think I'm going to lean toward Hogan.
Here we go.
Because of just the fact that Hogan, kind of like the Jericho thing, reinvented himself. He was the man in the 80s with the red and yellow. Then in the 90s, he turned heel, wore the black and white with the NWO, became one of the biggest, the biggest star, at least in WCW again. And then went back in the WWF, or WWE, went back to the red and yellow, and for, at least for a short period of time, he was he was a big time baby face again for probably for nostalgic purposes. So, and again, Hogan is so globally known. Like we said earlier on, people that don't even know wrestling probably know, they may not know who he is, but they know they've heard the name Hulk Hogan. So just for those reasons, the global recognition, and Hogan is he's been the top baby face, the top heel. I'm gonna go with Hogan, I think, in this case. It's not a landslide by any means, but
I almost
I'm
slammed
going
my
Hogan.
headset down again, but
Well,
I'm still with you
in all
guys.
seriousness, so did I earlier. If there was a big commotion, that was my headset. Tom, please let me go second.
Oh, absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, this is what makes this one so. They're all so tough, but this one isn't even like a generational. You can't say, oh, this guy was, in the 2000s for 5 years. I mean, these guys both started in the mid 70s and were racing through the 2000s, or arguably the two biggest name stars in the business. I mean, you can throw in, Stone Cold, or, guys like that as well. But Hogan and Flair, it's a dream matchup when they're in their prime. Ring work, definitely Ric Flair. Mic skills, definitely Ric Flair. Body/look, I have to go with Hogan just because of his size and the power. Legacy, I mean, gosh almighty. The legacy, you could say it's a tie. Again, Hogan is, I don't care what anyone says, the biggest name in professional wrestling history. But Ric Flair is right up there, and again, he's still a cultural phenomenon. He's a commercial still. Like I said earlier, he's a big part of the hip hop, rap community.
The North Carolina lottery system, or whatever you call it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's in that car insurance commercial.
Yeah.
He's been in commercials over the last couple of years. Hogan hasn't, in all seriousness, but by the slightest of margins, and I'm sorry if this is predictable, I'm giving just everything else is so close, because legacy to me is close. The ring work really separates it. I could go either way. God dang it, I'm going with Ric Flair. F it.
Yes.
F it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it live. Ric Flair.
All right,
So,
yeah.
Tom, you have the toughest decision, in my opinion, so far in the short history of our podcast, because you have the tiebreaker here.
Yeah, and this is tough. I will, and to those of you listening that think, especially if you're of a younger age, and we're like, well, I mean, we're building up Flair and Hogan. They're the two biggest stars in the history of the sport. And if you're out there listening, I think it's Undertaker and Stone Cold, or I think it's who The Rock and whoever. Well, you're just wrong. You can leave a comment and tell me. I may block you or ban you, but you're just wrong. And I'm kidding. We want the comments, so let us know what you think. But I'm going to try to diversify my criteria. I'm going to go with hair. And Hulk Hogan, really struggled in the hair department, where Rick's hair was luscious and flowing. So I think that separates the two. And I know I kid a lot. His hair was nice. Until they tried to make him Spartacus.
Oh, yeah.
But I think Ric Flair was. I mean, he was an international star. Certainly, maybe I take that back. At least a national star. Traveled from promotion to promotion. Would take on the likes of like the Von Erichs and WCCW, and I mean, he was in Continental, just all over the place, where Hogan was primarily AWA to WWF, before NWO. I think that New York push made Hogan a bigger star. So I'm not trying to. I think what Rick did to build NWA up to WCW was probably more impressive than Hogan coming in and getting the push from New York. I think Rick did it more on his own. The mic skills, probably Rick the greatest of all time, is a separating factor. We did mention, Hogan reinvented himself brilliantly with the NWO. I know that could have been Sting. I know Hogan was wavering up to the last minute on whether or not to make that jump. Rick did reinvent himself. I think, as I mentioned, as the Black Scorpion. So let's not forget that. But I am a child of the NWA. I loved Ric Flair, my favorite of all time. You can't go wrong with either guy here. So unless you want to veto, Mike, I just think Flair in a slight edge, just with what he had to work with and the promotional capabilities of, Crockett. He didn't have the backing that Hogan had to make him a worldwide star. And I may be stumbling over my own words here. And again, it's hard. It's the flip of a coin, but I'm going to go with Flair as the greatest wrestler in the history of the business.
And I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm not going to use the veto again, but I thought about it because I think Hogan is the biggest star, name. But yeah, I mean, if we're going, it is. Yeah, it's so close. It's hard. I mean, obviously, Rick to me is maybe the best in-ring worker, best on the mic. Yeah, I think Hogan, like I said, is maybe the most recognizable name in the history of the business. Probably just name alone, probably name or more than Rick. But yeah, at the end of the day, you can't go wrong either way. So, I mean, you guys might be wrong, but that's fine. I'll veto it. So
wow.
I'll beep that out.
That's again what this podcast is about. If it was easy, we would have breezed through this in 45, 50 minutes here. Peeling the curtain back. People don't know we've been filming this for a couple hours. That means we're not eating, we're not drinking.
Yep.
We're like pushing through this for you guys. So I hope it was worth it and entertaining. Because I'm hungry. I'm thirsty.
Yeah, I'm ready to cut it here, but I appreciate everybody listening. I say, if you do have the ability to comment, you think we're crazy, you agree with us, who should have been in, who should have been out, let us know. We will do our best to respond to everything.